Hey, Planeswalkers, it's that time of week once again where we have Friday Night Meta, where we break down the latest and greatest with all the decks going on right now with the Brothers War across all the different formats, best of one and best of three. I'm happy to break it down for you here today on the channel. Now, first off, the timestamps are down below for all those different pieces. Additionally, other great ways to stay connected as well as in the know. If you happen to have a question or comment throughout today's episode, do let me know. I love to hear from you. On top of that, feel free to swing by the Discord server. Now, great ways to support the channel. Thank you for the likes and the subs as always, and other great members as well. So here's what we got going on when we talk about standard here today for best of one. Azora Soldiers taking the #1 spot by fairly large spread now, going up to 5% there on terms of win rates for win rate today over mono red burn. We got mono black aggro in there, Selesnya enchantments, mono blue tempo, mono black control, mono white aggro, and then Grixis midrange. Now on the right, you'll find the popularity of those decks. Really heavy concentration there between Azora Soldiers and mono red burn, and then additionally as we get into mono black aggro and Grixis midrange. Now this is everything at a whole. If we go ahead now and scroll down, you can see how some of these trends have been going on. Like I said, Azora Soldiers doing well, reclaiming that spot. It hadn't been that top played deck. We do see that mono black aggro creeping up, like we said, in that Grixis midrange as well. Now the win rate has been fairly consistent against those Soldiers, breaking out of that early January meta rush as always. Let's go ahead and look at the more competitive scene to see if there's a little bit different things here. A little bit. Got mono white Soldiers at the top here, Grixis midrange, mono white aggro, mono black control, then Azora Soldiers, then mono red burn. So a little bit more of a different look and feel. We do have Azora Soldiers heavily played and mono red burn. Grixis midrange doing very well up there too in terms of that mythic spot. All right. Let's blow it all the way back out. We're going to move over to best of three now. Here at best of three, we do have Azora Soldiers again. Esper Legends, mono black aggro, Esper midrange, mono blue tempo, Mardu Angels, Grixis midrange, and Izzet tempo. On the right, Grixis midrange, heavy play, 32%. So you can certainly expect that, followed by Esper midrange and Azora Soldiers. Now, as we come down here, we can see these trends. Again, that Grixis midrange still heavily dominating. A few little things moving around there, but heavy concentration for everything else. And then as we scroll down, we do see Azora Soldiers kind of popping out there on top for a little bit, claiming that spot, which is something that has been a little new. All right, let's go to Mythic and see what we got. Here we have Esper midrange and Grixis midrange being the top two. On the right, you can see 30 and respective, almost 30%. And a respective 10%. All right, so that closes out standard this week for us. Let's go over to Alchemy. Alchemy, we got mono red aggro, mono black control, Jund sacrifice, mono red burn, Gold werewolves, Rakdos sacrifice, dim returns, and Selesnya enchantments. On the right there, we got mono red aggro, dim returns, Rakdos sacrifice, mono black control, again heavily dominated by these top three. As we go to the right, we do see some consolidation starting, that dim return starting to pick up. Probably Roscoe's in there is going to be my guess, and a big piece of that. And then we can see everything else here on the right in terms of those win rates and changes. Let's see if anyone's playing Mythic. Mythic, we do have mono red aggro there dominating in terms of Alchemy. So let's pull that all the way out. Best of three. What do we find here? We got Rakdos sacrifice, Grixis midrange, mono red goblins, Rakdos midrange, and the others. Grixis midrange at 27, Rakdos sacrifice at 15, Rakdos midrange at 10. Heavily Grixis midrange domination there, you can see in terms of what's going on there. And then also the win rates, we do see that sacrifice flipping over the top of Grixis midrange. Let's do a quick check here on Mythic. We do have some stuff here. Rakdos sacrifice, heavily, Grixis midrange, heavily, and Rakdos midrange, heavily, with a lovely win range. And then the win percents here on the right. All right. That closes out Alchemy for us. Let's go ahead and dive into Historic. Historic, we have Azora's Control at the top. Mono red aggro, Rakdos midrange, Izzet Wizards, mono green elves, Selesnya Squirrel Twin, mono green devotion. That's pretty big and of a change there with Azora's Control at the top. Then on the right, Izzet Wizards had been heavily defining the meta. Along with Izzet Belcher, but here we have mono green elves, Selesnya Squirrel Twin, Rakdos midrange, and the rest. And then here on the right, we can see that, like I said, is Wizards domination. Same thing there, but slowly but steadily, that Azor's control has been creeping up on the trend line in terms of those win rates. Let's go ahead and check out Mythic here. Mythic, we have Rakdos midrange and Azor's control at best of 1, heavily dominating the space. Let's go all the way out. Move over to best of 3. Best of 3, we have Azor's Affinity at 68%. Is it Wizards, Rakdos Goblins, Rakdos Midrange, Mono Green Devotion, Selesnya Squirrel Twin, Azor's Control, and on the right, Rakdos Midrange, Mono Green Devotion, and Azor's Affinity taking up most of the meta. You can see that Rakdos midrange continues to stay above, green dropping off a little bit, and then again Affinity popping back up, and then Affinity having that really, really healthy win rate there over time. Let's go ahead and see if we're playing in Mythic. Rakdos midrange pretty much all at Mythic. All right, let's pull that out and back to best of 1. Last but not least here in our BO1 BO3 formats, we have Explorer. Mono blue spirits at the top. Abs and Greasefangs, Selesnya Angels, Mono red burn, Mono red aggro, Boros historic or heroic, I think falling a little bit there. Mono green devotion, Mono black devotion, then on the right, green devotion at 16%, Selesnya Angels, and then Mono red aggro. Everything else about 6-5%. Here you can see that Mono green devotion falling off a little bit. Selesnya Angels kind of doing the inverse. And then the rest here condensing. And here, like I said, there's that Boros Heroic falling off. That's a pretty big hit in terms of what was covered out of the gate there. We do see that Mono Black Devotion making that steady rise. Let's see what's going on in Mythic. Nothing in terms of Mythic for Explorer. We'll pull that all the way back. Let's check best of 3. Best of 3, Selesnya Angels, Mono Blue Spirits, Mono White Humans, Gruul Vehicles, Mono Green Devotion, Rakdos Midrange, Azor's Control, Mono Red Aggro. On the right here, dominated by the top 3, Devotion, Rakdos Midrange, and Azor's Control. All right, and then again, similar patterns as before, a little bit of downtrend, which means compressing of the meta. Here on the right, Selesnya Angels still dominating in that space. Let's see what we got going on at Mythic. Mythic, nothing again for our Explorer format here today. All right, our final format, Historic Brawl. Is Rusko still dominating? Yes, Rusko is still dominating, or Rusko, the Clockmaker at 7.7%. Then we have Teferi, this first sliver, Yorion, Gix, Radic, Azusa, and then Goshen Tai. And you can see the percentage played on the right really dropping off that 1.5 versus generally seen at 3% in terms of this space. At least this has fallen off a little bit from 11.4 to 7. Maybe a little bit of the folks want to change up what they're playing. A couple of spikes here in something else with Radic, as also Goshen Tai, and then the latest one with Azusa. And then on the right, that win rate still continues to trend upwards. Some of the other win rates also doing a little bit better than what they have done historically in the past for Historic Brawl. All right, let's pull it all back around for today. We've seen a couple changes evolve here on the meta as we get about halfway through January. Again, a lot of the players getting out of that compacted, what I like to call Mythic into Platinum and then Diamond. As it kind of spreads things out, we begin to see some of these things at length and where the micro and the macro kind of shift and change up as well. So I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. It's a good dive for us to see what's going on today and trending as always for both competitive players and those that are not. So with that, thank you for your time as always. Questions, comments, do let me know. Thank you for the likes and the subs and the members as always. With that, great ways to stay connected. Questions, comments, do let me know. I love to hear from you. And don't forget to swing by the Discord server. All right, Planeswalkers, until next week with our Friday Night Meta Weekly series. Between now and then, we got a lot more stuff coming your way. As always, take care, Planeswalkers. Mythras out of here.